And now it's time for our favorite part of the show. What's that say? Ads and sponsorship. Ugh, this is gonna be a real nightmare. Okay, what do you got for me? Patreon.com? What the hell is that? And they just give us money for it? Oh, if only we had that around in the 70s. Make sure you ask your mommies and daddies to send money to bestdarndiddly at patreon.com so they can drive a dump truck full of money up to our houses. Uh-oh, I said the loud part quiet and the quiet part loud.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as MrMostDaysOff, and oh boy, do we have a great episode to talk about today, and a great guest joining us along the way. We're going to introduce him in just a moment, but first, joining me as always, your co-host with the most, Richie the WizKid. How you doing today, Rich?
Man, it's one of those days where you wake up and it just feels like you're carrying around the stone of shame. I don't know. I just dragging my feet. I just wish there was something to talk about that would make me happy. Oh, wait, you mean like a fantastic episode? This episode is so much fun, so we won't waste any more time. Let me throw it back to you, the man, the myth, the Miles. What kind of stupid wiener name is that? It is Miles.
Man, I had the exact opposite day today. I woke up feeling like I already had the Stone of Triumph attached because I knew it was going to be a good day. I knew we were going to talk about a great episode, and I knew we were going to have a great guest. It's Patsy, the angry nerd from the Throwdown Thursday Podcast, or as we affectionately like to call him, it's Patti Cakes. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you today?
Oh, I am doing fantastic. I feel like I've gone from being number 908 to the chosen one. That's how I feel today.
Attach the Stone of Triumph!
Oh, I feel like I've been on the top of Mount Springfield waiting for my coronation. That's how excited I am to be on the show today.
Well, brother, we are so excited to have you. We had the distinct pleasure of joining you on your podcast to talk about a couple of great Simpsons characters in the past, and even a couple of our own favorite fan theories, which we'll talk about at least one of those on the show today. But first, tell us a little bit about the Throwdown Thursday podcast. I know what it's all about, but let's make sure everybody's on board. That's you and your lovely wife, Ashes Von Nightmare, each and every week. What do you do on the Throwdown Thursday podcast?
Well, what we like to do is where there's so many, types of review shows like yours, or folks that do movie reviews. What we like to do is take the characters from within those shows and books and movies and video games and kind of break them down and give folks a little bit of background on who they are. Especially what we like to do is talk about the Marvel characters that people might not be all that familiar with how big those movies have been. But we'll do it for everything. We do historical characters. We talk about science as well and sharks. And we just had our 2-year anniversary a few weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations. I think we may have gotten a chance to be a small part of that.
Yep, you guys did a very nice voicemail for our 100th episode, and we very much appreciate that. And we are definitely looking forward to having you guys back on because we've got more Simpsons to talk about.
Dude, you name the time and place, and we will be happy to be there to talk about The Simpsons. And I know we have a lot of other shared interests, so I'll come on and talk about stuff other than The Simpsons. It's rare, but I actually do sometimes do that as well.
That's true. You are more than just a one-trick pony.
But yeah, your show is great, man. It's a lot of fun. It is a unique perspective. You talk about a lot of really cool things. We did, in fact, talk to you when we joined you. It was Ralph Wiggum, who is an amazing character, of course. I personally really enjoy your podcast when you dive into some of the horror icons. I know that I believe it was just this past year in the month of October, right around the time of Halloween, you were doing a sort of American Idol type of thing where you had like 2 horror icons on the line and you had people vote for which one would move forward. And that was really cool. I really enjoyed that series as well. But if you are wanting a look into a different side of the characters that you enjoy, this is a podcast that I highly recommend anyone.
Well, I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely. And recently you actually had a really cool episode I want to ask you a few questions about. You had the entire cast of the new sci-fi original movie Megalodon, is that correct?
That is correct. We had just about everybody. Yeah, we had 5 different actors. We had Dominic Pace, Ego Makidis, Paulina Laurent, Elizabeth Cron, and Carolyn Harris, sorry. All joining us on the show to give kind of their perspective and talk about, how this film is going to be different from most Asylum films. Because I feel like Asylum films, when people hear that, that's the studio that's putting the movie out, they immediately dismiss it as ridiculous. But, it's perfectly fine for Samuel L. Jackson to be in a movie where, they're trying to cure Alzheimer's by enhancing the brains of mako sharks. That's okay.
I love Deep Blue Sea for what it's worth, so you tread lightly, sir. But
well, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying, if Asylum had put that out, people would be like, "Oh, Shaw, that's
Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, never."
No, I hear what you're saying, and for what it's worth, I mean, I don't mean to step on anyone's toes with this, because I think it seems like it's going to be a real fun movie, but I also think that a lot of times, for me personally, I'm a wrestling fan, so I get this a lot in terms of you have to watch these movies with a suspension of disbelief, just like you have to watch wrestling with a suspension of disbelief, because nobody really believes that an undead wizard is fighting a superhero, just like nobody really believes that there are actually motherfucking sharks on this motherfucking submarine, or whatever it is that they say in this film. Bottom line being that when you go and you watch it, what I guess would traditionally be referred to as a B movie, there's still a lot of room for really great things to come from these. And as long as the cast and crew is passionate about what they do, you can see that in the final product, and it can still be a really enjoyable experience.
Yeah, and that's I actually interviewed Paulina Laurent by herself to talk about another. She was in Triassic World, which I thought was really good. I mean, the premise of it is dinosaurs are being cloned so we can harvest their organs for human transplant, which there's a whole lot of problem with that. One of the things you have to really think about with these movies is because they have such a lower budget, they don't have the same type of shooting schedule that like another film would have. So you have to learn all your lines, and if there's fight choreography, and you have to execute, and hit all your marks perfectly, because you don't have the luxury of, a 3 or 4 month shoot where you can do like a Stanley Kubrick, like 170 takes for the same scene. You got to get this done right, and you got to get it done perfectly, like when the first 1 or 2 times. So I think that's something that a lot of folks kind of, gloss over and don't think about.
Well, there's also a lot of charm to movies like that, though, in those regards. Like, my father lived and died by Sci-Fi Saturday Night on the Sci-Fi Channel, and he would watch every single movie no matter what. And it plays off of what Miles said earlier, but there's what to expect out of something like that. And I mean, take Sharknado, the most famous one of all. They all buy it and believe it, and it makes it so much more enjoyable to watch. And you know what you're getting going into it, and that doesn't mean that. A lot of them use it as a stepping stone to go somewhere else, or that's as far as they're going to get. So they're just going to oversell it and enjoy the time they have. And I think there's a like I said, a charm to that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for a lot of folks, it also helps, maybe they've been out of the spotlight for a while.
Yes.
One of the things thinking about this Simpsons episode where Steve Guttenberg is prominently mentioned. He was in He was in Lava Lantula, and the second one, Two Lava, Two Lantula. So
I didn't know they made a sequel to that one. I saw the first one.
And he had a cameo in one of the Sharknadoes. I believe it was 5.
That's cool. What a fun tie-in for having you on a guest for this. Actually, I'm just going to own this and say that's the actual reason we invited you on for this episode, is we knew there would be this great connection.
I figured. That's what I'm good at. I'm good at finding random connections.
That's great.
I wanted to see how probable Sharknado actually is.
Based on some research that I and other folks have done, it is plausible, not to the level that you're seeing, but, it's very common for large groups of aquatic animals to get sucked up into a water spout, which is a tornado that forms over water, and then brought over to land and then dropped onto the ground.
Universal Studios.
On the Tara Reid.
And tornadoes, higher end, the 4 F5 tornadoes are capable of picking up 1,500-pound cars and heaving them around. So what's the difference between a 1,500-pound car and a 1,500-pound shark?
You just inspired a great new script, Patsy. We can do Megalodon NATO.
Ooh, that might be a big
Transformer sharks.
Ooh.
There you go.
They have those. They're Sharkicons.
Oh no, that's true.
So actually, I know you want to talk about The Simpsons. That's why we're all here today, of course.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to ask you another question about you real quick. And that is, where does this passionate love for sharks come from? Because I've seen pictures of you wearing a full-on shark costume, like just out and about. And your profile picture that I'm currently looking at for Skype right now is a Lego figure dressed in a shark. You're talking to all these shark movie stars and producers, and obviously you have a passion here. Tell us about where this comes from.
Well, I've always been passionate about, marine life. And to me, with the exception of an orca, which a lot of people don't know they're a porpoise, but they do a killer whale impression.
Oh.
Had to throw that.
All right, and that's all for Patrick the Angry Nerd. We'll see you next time on the Best Darn Diddly Review Show.
Well, no, I as you can tell by my name, and if you've listened to the show, I love science, and sharks are one of those few species that are evolutionarily perfect. Like, they haven't changed much in the past few 100 million years because they haven't had to. I find them fascinating, like, especially when you watch, like a Shark Week, and you see, in South Africa in the Bay of Seals, when the sharks are leaping out of the water, this is a 15-ton animal leaping out of the water, completely just to catch prey. And it's fantastic. I mean, half of the, the aquatic, underwater stuff that we have in our military is kind of shaped like a shark. I mean, look at a torpedo or a submarine. They're shaped very much like a shark.
Interesting. That's pretty cool. I also am a fan of the underwater world, and I think sharks are really neat, but I do not know a fraction of what you know about them, I'm guessing.
Well, I spent a lot of my time as a child reading a lot of Jacques Cousteau books and just...
Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Watching a lot of Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. That's where you get all your information from.
Yes.
So your childhood, I'm guessing, based on the conversations we've had then, was essentially... You must have been doing this reading while taking your commercial breaks of The Simpsons, because my God, sir, you know a shit ton about The Simpsons.
Well, I've been watching it since it came on, mainly because I wasn't allowed to.
Ah, yes, one of the, it's a little bit naughty, so it's more fun, viewers.
Yeah, this was, I was very young when it came out. I'm like 9-10 years old watching this on my 12-inch black and white Zenith, adjusting the rabbit ears just so, and kind of covering my TV with a blanket so my parents can't see the light down the hallway, because that's what always got you. It wasn't the volume. It was the light coming down the hallway. That's how they knew you were watching TV.
Oh, yeah.
So, I remember the whole Thursday night lineup. It was, The Simpsons. It was Herman's Head, which featured a couple of Simpsons actors.
Wow. You might be the first person I've met other than Simpsons writers who worked for the show who actually knew what Herman's Head was.
Oh yeah, I my favorite Simpsons jokes of all time is when Lisa's imagining Bart, and I talked to Mike Price about this.
Yeah.
When he was on. Lisa imagining Bart as a hamster getting stuck in the maze, and she's chuckling to herself, and Marge is like, "What are you laughing about?" She's like, "Oh, just thinking about a joke I saw on Herman's Head." And Yardley Smith, who plays Lisa, was also an actress on Herman's Head, along with Hank Azaria.
That's really cool. I'm glad. That's so fun that you had an opportunity to talk with Mike Price about that as well. Of course, we're big fans of him as well. He's been on our podcast a few times, and such a fun dude to talk to about just anything for as long as he's willing to.
Yeah, and I have to thank you guys because it's because you were able to speak to him that we were able to speak to him. So, I have to thank you guys for giving us that opportunity. Like, that's how we got connected.
I'm so glad that we could be a part of that, man. That's awesome. And yeah, that was a great interview you guys had. Definitely encourage any Simpsons fans out there. And hopefully, if you're listening to this show, you are one. So go check out that episode of Throwdown Thursday where they had Mike Price going on the show. Yeah, we talked Krusty the Clown. The name of the episode is The Price We Pay for Krusty. Nice. You're so clever. I try. So you're 10, 11, 12 years old, you said. You're watching The Simpsons from day one. It's on the Thursday lineup. What was your experience early on? You kind of jumped ahead. I usually ask everybody, what's your connection to The Simpsons? That's your start, but where did this lead to as you continued your inappropriate viewings of The Simpsons under the blanket? That sounded weirder than I meant it to, but you know what I mean.
He meant it exactly how it sounds.
Well, it was one of those things where it's like I had already, loved animated shows because I'm a young kid, but this one was more grown up, and they would like give you some of the same types of jokes that I didn't really understand when they were on like In Living Color, like when you saw Jim Carrey and Jamie Foxx doing random stuff.
Homie, don't play that.
Yeah, Damon Wayans is Homie the Clown. Yeah, or I
love Fire Marshal Bill.
I was just gonna say Jim Carrey is Fire Marshal Bill. You would get some of these more grown-up jokes that, were still kind of aimed at kids. But, I mean, Disney's been doing that for, 70, 80 years.
It wasn't the first people to do it, but I would say that In Living Color definitely took it a degree further than even The Simpsons, which took it further than Disney.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's 9:00 on a Thursday night.
Yeah. Let's get wild, baby.
I mean, I remember, like, The Simpsons essentially carried Fox for the longest time because that Thursday night lineup changed so often. I mean, you had John Leguizamo's House of Buggin'. I remember that show.
Yikes! I don't even think I've heard of that one.
It was a sketch comedy show with John Leguizamo. Like, that was about it.
That pretty much sells itself right there.
There was some good stuff with that. There was a Chris Elliott show.
Oh, that one was actually one that I believe David Merkin worked on. Dave Merkin from, the showrunner of The Simpsons in the episode that we are about to review. What was that called? Do you remember? It was.
I honestly don't.
I'm blanking on it too, but yeah, I know what show you're talking about. It was criticized for being often too dark in its humor. I wonder how that ever happened, being a project that Merkin worked on.
I remember one episode of it where he like fell out of a plane, and the whole episode was like him flashing back to other episodes. It's like, it's always a bad sign when you're in one season and you're already doing like flashbacks to like, clip shows, and he falls out of the sky, lands on a bed. Oh, thank God I landed on this soft bed, which would fucking kill you anyways.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I forgot if I'm allowed to swear or not.
Oh, you swear away, sir.
Okay, okay.
We're not censored here. Yeah, we might get some bad reviews that we cuss too much, because apparently some people can't read the NSFW sign that pops up or whatever it says on iTunes.
Yeah, on mine it says explicit. I swear.
Yeah, that's what it is, explicit. Yeah, but we still inevitably end up with reviews saying, "Oh, they curse too much." Fuck you.
Yeah. But then, like, he lands on the bed in the middle of nowhere. It's like, oh, thank God. And then, like, for no reason, it explodes. As we often see on The Simpsons, where things just randomly explode for no reason.
One of my favorite bits on that ever is, I mean, The Simpsons does it great at the time, but coming a little bit more modern times, it was the remake movie 21 Jump Street. And they do this sequence where you just think everything's going to explode and nothing does, and it's brilliant. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
I will.
The first 22 Jump Street, 21 Jump Street, that movie is actually pretty solid.
See, I haven't seen either of those, to be honest with you.
I would recommend the first one.
Was the show Get a Life?
It sounds right.
I saw Dave Merkin listed his writing credits on that.
Get a Life 1990 TV series. Yeah, I was looking it up as you were saying it. Wow, it went for 3 years.
Back in the 90s, I mean, it was a different time.
It was a budding network.
Yeah, back then Fox was essentially
what comes on around The Simpsons.
Yeah, it was The Simpsons, Melrose Place, 90210, Party of Five, and The X-Files, but it was really The Simpsons and The X-Files.
My mom was a dedicated Party of Five watcher, all right? So, I'm sure it had at least an audience of one.
My mom loved that show, too.
Party of Five, audience of one.
I would have loved the show if I knew what Jennifer Love Hewitt was going to become back then, but she is pretty young in that one.
Well, so are you at the time, though.
That is true, so I get a pass. All right, good call, Miles.
Yeah, it's like when you talk about, Eliza Dushku in True Lies. Like, yeah, I was also 12 in 1993, so...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you ever touch yourself thinking about that, I just refer to it as a retro jerk, and it's fine.
Mario Brothers theme song playing in the background.
Yeah, like in 8-bit quality, though. It sounds like it come out of like a MIDI sound card.
Oh, yeah.
What are we talking about today?
I think we're talking about The Simpsons is what we're supposed to be talking about. So why don't we? In fact, we're talking about the episode Homer the Great today, which it's the first episode of 1995. It came out on January 8th, 95 to be specific. And this episode actually has a pretty interesting history right off the bat. This episode came at a time when the Simpsons writers' room was just burdened to the point. I mean, the show is running on all cylinders. They're being asked for more content constantly. We've talked about how they had divided out and started doing clip shows to try to give the writers a little bit of the break. Well, in season 5, they had 22 episodes, and in season 6, they're already back up to 25 episodes. So that was a short-lived reprieve. And long story short, Merkin is saying that it's hard to come up with fresh ideas at this point, and he was finding himself in a rut. So one night after coming off of a writing session that went till 2 a.m., he's on his drive home, and he just is trying to find something to change it up entirely. Something that'll just spark that writer's log loose, so to speak. And he actually tunes into AM Christian radio, where he hears two guys talking about the Freemasons, and almost instantly this idea was born. Homer as a Freemason, it almost writes itself, which it did not. In fact, Merkin passed this off to supposed writer, possible myth, John Swartzwelder, and Mike Reese's good personal friend, we might point out. He wanted to make that quite clear, that it is in fact just a man. But yeah, this was an episode written by Swartzwelder, but it was Merkin's idea from a very unusual source of information. And immediately at the top of the commentary from the DVD, this commentary featured Dave Merkin, Yeardley Smith, the voice of Lisa, Dan Castellaneta, the voice of Homer, and Matt Groening. Again, a lot of free lunch passed out that day.
Yes.
The chalkboard gag on this one is adding "just kidding" doesn't make it okay to insult the principal. I don't know where they got that
just
information,
kidding.
But it's incorrect. Yeah, exactly. And the couch gag, I actually really like this couch gag a lot. It's essentially an M.C. Escher painting where all the Simpsons are running at bizarre, impossible angles to all end up on the Simpsons couch in front of the television screen.
Can I just add one thing real quick into that?
No.
Always. That's why you are here, my friend. Jump on in.
I think Matt Groening is a huge M.C. Escher fan, and especially of that particular piece, because in Futurama, when I almost said Fry and Bender are looking for an apartment, one of the apartments they look at is the exact same thing, and Bender starts falling down the stairs in all kinds of crazy angles, and Leela's like, I don't know if we want to pay for a dimension we're not going to use. So I think that kind of harkens to Groening's love of MC Escher.
That's really fun. That's a great connection.
That crazy Bender.
So this episode officially starts off in the Simpsons basement. Well, actually, we pan to the Simpsons basement from the Stern Lecture plumbing van we can see in front of the Simpsons home, where their motto, "I told you not to flush that." We see what I would say is a stern-looking plumber in the basement, and he's saying it looks like you got a leak in the Simpsons basement, which is clearly flooded to about knee-deep at this point.
And she thinks the cat's down there. So Marge thinks the cat's down there somewhere, which who cares?
Yeah, it's true. It's not like Santa's little helper is missing. That would have mattered. But,
I do swimming around.
I love the plumber, though. It's like, yeah, I probably won't be able to get the parts I need for 2-3 weeks, and that's if I order them today. Which I won't. He then gets and also he's loading and smoking a pipe in the Simpsons basement. I really love this imagery. I'm not sure why. His beeper goes off saying low battery, but he declares that it's an emergency call, and he just rolls out, leaving the Simpsons with nothing but the advice to, put a pan down there. And a great image when Homer actually does, but of course it just kind of floats like a toy boat might.
It didn't work.
I like the fact that when Homer puts the pan down, he's got this hopeful look on his face, like,
yeah,
maybe?
Well, I mean, to his credit, an expert did give him that advice, and, we, as a society, are often too trustworthy of supposed experts, so this is a great example of that.
Yeah, that's true. I just he's so disappointed when it doesn't work.
Yeah. Aww. And his disappointment continues to his commute, where he is stuck in some pretty gnarly traffic. But it's fine. The traffic report's going to get him out of this one. And you see him turn on KBBL on the radio.
This is Arnie Pie. Looks like we got a little accident that's backing traffic up as far as this reporter can see.
When the camera backs out, we can see that it's in fact Arnie Pie, who is very much not in the sky because he crashed into the freeway that Homer is currently stuck in traffic on.
But you have to admire his dedication to his job.
That's very, very
the
true.
Traffic report.
Yeah, you know what? Good point, Patsy. And that's the type of dedication that, that's going to get him somewhere someday. He might actually have like a management position there at KBBL.
That's right.
I thought he worked for the news channel.
Yeah, you're right. I think he does. Isn't he supposed to work with Brockman? It's a flexible reality, Richie. If that's the biggest thing we have wrong with this episode.
And he gets promoted because of this report, which would
a lot of people do both.
That's true.
Stations are affiliated.
Yeah, they could be sister stations. That's true.
Sisters, you say?
If that little minor lack in consistency bothers you, then you're really going to hate when Homer finally does arrive to work. We see him pull into his parking space, which, as it pans out, he's right up against the chain link fence. It's got like the razor wire over the top, and you can see it's actually backed up against the Simpsons' backyard, where Bart actually waves out the window. Hi, Dad. If you hate this joke, you are, for one, wrong, but two, not alone. I love this joke, but Matt Groening did not like it at all when it first was made, and this is not the first time we've had a butting of heads, so to speak, between Matt Groening and David Merkin, who wrote this joke. Of course, these two actually got quite heated over this at the time of production, though Matt Groening does admit on the commentary, which is a good 10 plus years after the show aired, that after all of the many laughs and the many years and the, as Merkin added, millions of dollars, Matt Groening's come around on this joke. He doesn't hate it as much as he used to.
See, I had some notes about this saying that I love the way the geography of Springfield changes to suit the episode's jokes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a flexible reality, and it serves the show very well.
And it reminds me of another Fox show, and I don't know who got what from whom in this instance, but there was a Married with Children episode where they're trying to go on vacation, and they've been stuck in traffic for hours, and Bud looks out and goes, "Oh, I can see our house from here." And he's like, "Great. 2 hours on the road and we're almost home, and it's very similar to how this joke went. We're both Fox shows at the time, at the height of their powers.
Yeah, I was also a big Married with Children fan, and I remember that episode well. I remember that joke well. I have no idea which came first, so we should check on that at some point. That's interesting.
I definitely enjoy the noise that Homer makes after Bart says, "Hi, Dad." In this instance.
It's just a really, really well done visual gag. Is really
absolutely.
What it is.
Well, what we see, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but that fence ends basically at the end of Homer's car. Like, he doesn't have to drive through town.
I noticed that as well. I'm sure it was just because the animation would have looked really awkward, but from the camera perspective we see, it looks like the fence literally just ends halfway through the Simpsons' yard. So yeah, he could have definitely saved himself a lot of hassle and some gas if he would have just walked.
Well, usually it's a wooden fence, so obviously there's repairs being needed right now, so they just had to put something up until the new wood came in for the new fence.
Well, I was going to say,
that's it.
I don't think Homer's above driving through his lawn to save a few minutes off his commute.
That's also a really good point. He absolutely would destroy property just to get a slightly easier time on himself.
Well, but he doesn't want to be at work.
To be fair, he'd probably drive through Flanders' yard.
That's more
at least on the way home, Richie. That's a good point.
Daddy.
Stupid Flanders. So Homer has a long hike all the way to the power plant, basically walking from home. And when he gets up to the front, we see Lenny and Carl have much, much better parking spaces than he does. And we get our first little moment that something suspicious might be happening with these two, because when Homer asks, "How come you guys got such a great parking place?" we hear Lenny say,
"It's a secret."
And Carl,
"Shut up."
We see Homer goes into work. He just kind of shakes this one off, but once he's at his desk, he's sitting in a really, really shitty little stool, and of course it collapses under his weight. Once he picks it up and looks at it, it's the EconoSave budget stool, and worse yet, it's actually a factory second. So not only did they go economy, they went like the reject section. Homer's pissed. He actually declares that they are going on his revenge list, which flashes by very, very quickly. But fortunately, the fine folks at IMDb have listed this out, and we can see Homer is set for vengeance on the Bill of Rights, Grandpa, Fat-Free Lard, Gravity, I'm with you on that one, buddy, the Emmys, Darwin, H2WOA, which I believe is the name of one of the water slides
it's the Mount Splashmore water slide that he got stuck in.
That's I love the continuity of that, or the callback to that. Billy Crystal is also on the list, as is God, the Solo Flex, The Boy, Stern Lecture Plumbing, and now the 13th is EconoSave.
You gotta love that they do the immediate callback to the plumbing company, too.
Yeah, I love how much depth we have there between H2WOA, which I believe is a season 2 episode, all the way to just
Brush
a few
with
minutes
Greatness.
ago. There you go.
Good call.
Nice.
Thank you, companion guidebook.
Well done, book. You've served us well again.
Now let's throw it in the fire once more.
It gets expensive buying new books each week.
Yeah.
It was probably a mistake to put that fireplace in your bedroom.
Go.
And that's why you're on the show.
Nicely done, sir. We see Homer go and ask Lenny and Carl for assistance with this busted ass stool, and it's very interesting to find that Lenny and Carl both have very nice, it looks like they were both massage chairs and they had their names stitched into them. Real top of the line shit we're talking about. Lap of luxury, or your laps in luxury. I don't know what to say there, but Homer immediately notices, "Hey, how come you guys got better chairs than me?"
It's a secret.
Shut up!
And once again, we get this great moment of just total suspicion where even someone as dense as Homer is going to figure out that something here is going on.
Homer gets a little sly in this episode. Some of his plans actually work.
He really
It's
does.
on his game. Good point. Things are going to continue not to go Homer's way for now, though, because at the soda machine, we see Lenny uses a ring that has some sort of emblem on it, and he puts it into this secret place. It's not really all that secret. It's just on the opposite side of the machine as where the coin goes, and I would say it would be pretty noticeable, to be honest.
But would you think anything of it if you saw it?
If it had a little symbol on it, I think it might stand out, is all I'm saying. I would probably notice that type of stuff, but that might just be me. Regardless, his ring seemingly gives him a free soda, but when Homer walks up and starts putting some change in, he tries to see if the guys want to get together tonight and maybe do some bowling.
Nah, we're busy.
And then they say, yeah, we got other things to do, but Homer's not done. He's going to press. He's like, what?
It's a secret.
Only this time Carl's in the middle of chewing, so Homer actually looks at him for a moment and then responds to Lenny himself, shut up!
He was drinking the Buzz Cola.
Yeah, you're right. His mouth was full.
Yeah,
though,
he's definitely chugging that thing.
But it's definitely the comedy of threes there for sure with that joke.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it was a great way to flip that around at the end and get the good punchline on it. Actually, I really like the other time they do that at the literally very end of this episode. I'm sure we'll talk about as well, but we've got a lot to go before we get there for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Later that evening at the Simpsons' home, specifically at dinner, Homer's telling the family about what's going on, and he's convinced there's a conspiracy happening because every Wednesday those guys go out and they don't tell him where he goes.
Do you think they might be involved in the Kennedy assassination in some way?
I do now. Anyway, I'm going to go follow them tonight and see where they go.
Oh, Homer, don't start stalking people again. It's so illegal. Remember when you were stalking Charles Kuralt? I don't remember how to say that name because you thought he dug up your garden?
Well, something did.
I don't want you stalking anyone tonight.
Okay, have it your way, Marge. I'll be back in a minute. I'm going outside to stalk Lenny and Carl. Don't! These are the best moments when Homer just has these slow realizations that he completely said what was happening inside out loud. Also, I have no idea who Charles Kuralt is, and I forgot to look him up.
Yeah, I don't have that readily available. I looked up other stuff, like Albert Schweitzer.
I'm slightly embarrassed because this is the type of thing I usually don't let go, but here's a first for everything, so if you're interested in what the meaning behind this joke is, Google him yourself. Charles Kuralt. My guess, it's just one of those random name pools that could have been anyone.
He was
Charles
a journalist,
Kuralt.
and that's all the information you'll get out of us.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you get here, folks. We're not doing our journalistic duties. We're not sure if he did or not.
I think he did. That's how we made it into the
Yeah.
into the joke.
He's probably just way better than us at this, so that's why. Maybe if we got good at this, we'll be featured in a Simpsons joke one day.
Yeah, well, if he's so smart, how come he's dead?
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
On the 4th of July, he died, too. That's kind of weird. Wait, stop giving the people information. They have to figure
Yeah,
out.
that's it.
Patriotic.
You're cut off, Richie. You're cut off, WizKid. No more. Homer does, in fact, decide to trail Lenny and Carl, and he does the old poke a hole in a can of paint and let it drip on the pavement as you follow him. I thought it was hilarious that it was yellow stripes just because it makes it look like a two-way road, and that's kind of funny for the implications of what's going to happen when further people drive on that or when other people try to drive on that. But it works for what Homer needs to get done. He's able to find the secret meeting place of where Lenny and Carl disappear to every Wednesday night.
Well, I have
follow the yellow drip road.
I was going to say, I love the wordplay on Yellow Drip Road, but also surprising agility from Homer to leap into the bushes out of Lenny and Carl seeing him.
Some of that old whacking day training is still just in his memory.
And
Yeah,
Starfish Ninja Star training.
Yeah. Like, that was impressive.
For sure.
He has his moments.
Homer decides he's going to just try to walk right in like he owns the place, but immediately that plan fails when he gets cut off by a bodyguard or a doorman or whatever you want to call it. So he just does the old walk around. It actually really reminds me of a very popular GIF that people use where you see Abe Simpson walk in the door with a hat. He hangs his hat on a rack, he immediately turns around, grabs, it is the bordello. He grabs the hat off the rack, replaces it, and leaves. And I don't know if it was just the animation, but it reminded me a lot of that.
Is your name Bart? Yeah.
Homer has a backup plan, though. He climbs the roof, which, again, where is this agility coming from? And he sprawls out on the top of a dome window, which I really love the animation here, because we actually see inside this hall meeting or whatever you want to call it, and you can see Homer's silhouette down on the floor, which is super obvious and noticeable, and I'm pretty sure everybody would have seen that since it's kind of like the centerpiece of the room.
That's in my notes too. I wrote, nobody notices the silhouette.
Again, when you're on the ground floor walking, you're so much closer to the ground, you might notice that it's a little darker there, but you might not think anything of it. It's just a cloud in the night sky.
Well, they do show people talking to each other, so they're not looking down.
And there you go. They also do have one key feature of every single meeting, and that's lots and lots of beer. So maybe they're already past the point of noticing small details like this.
And which, does the security guard get to join the meeting, or are they just outside the whole time? Because that would suck.
I would have a rule where it's like, all right, guys, the door's locking 10 minutes after the meeting time starts so that our boy can come and join in. And if you're not here on time, well, that's on you.
Or maybe that's number 2.
That's how you rank up in the meetings, is when people are late. So there's a lot of sabotage in these hidden societies. Exactly. I wonder if the Beastie Boys are Masons. That might be what that was all about. Or Stonecutters, excuse me.
There you go.
I don't want to get taken out and disappeared. That's pretty much what happens to Homer, because unfortunately that dome window collapses under his weight and he comes crashing to the floor in front of everyone. Right after, of course, he was giggling and saying, "I can see everything and they're none the wiser." Crack. Psh. Immediately he's spotted as an intruder, and Skinner and Hibbert are both like, he will pay the ultimate price.
Yes, the ultimate price.
So the ultimate price is apparently getting tossed out of the front door by Moe. Get out of here!
Just like a trunk toss. Yeah. I'm sure it's not the first time he's tossed Homer out of a door.
Well, they just did it the other week.
As I say, at least they didn't rough him up this time. I actually thought this offense would be more deserving of getting beat up, but in the episode Fear of Flying, where Guy Incognito was beat up in Homer's place because they thought he was trying to sneak in, and that was pretty brutal considering they were friends in the beginning of that episode.
Yeah, that was a savage beating.
So you're saying they're harboring feelings still from last week's episode?
It could be. That could be what it is. Either way, Homer was clearly not welcome, but the next day at work, he has some questions. After all, he comes up to Lenny and Carl saying, "I saw some weird stuff in that place last night. Weird, strange, sick, twisted, eerie, godless, evil stuff. And I want in."
Don't know what you're talking about.
And you can't join the Stonecutters because it's too exclusive.
It was a real nice secret organization we had once.
And that's how Stoner. And that's how Homer learns of the Stonecutters, and immediately he wants to know how he can join.
There are only 2 ways to gain membership. Be the son of a stonecutter.
Next.
Or save the life of a stonecutter.
So, as Lenny's saying this, he's starting to take a bite of the sandwich, and Homer just assaults him, claiming he just saved his life. After all, that egg sandwich could have killed him by cholesterol.
Forget it, Homer. Well, it's been established that eggs contain cholesterol. It has not yet been proven conclusively that they actually raise the level of serum cholesterol in the human bloodstream.
So one of those egg council guys got to you too, huh?
You got it all wrong, Homer. It's not like that.
But then we actually see in the background basically a person dressed as an egg, we have to assume, comes out of like a closet and starts running away from Homer, who is actually chasing after him. This is a weird joke, and Merkin does talk about it on the commentary. Apparently, this is a parody of a short-lived cholesterol advertisement by the Egg Council, and it really didn't last long enough to make a splash, so it's kind of a lost... Yeah, there is an Egg Council. That is the big takeaway here.
Well, I like the fact that Lenny's while he's talking to him, Lenny's like kind of making this go away gesture with his hand.
Yes, like giving him the heads up.
And the egg actually makes a noise while it's running away.
Yeah, it's the same noise that the rats make whenever they have rats or like any type of vermin. So it's like that must be like their catch-all for like small birds and rats.
That's a good observation, sir. And eggs.
Maybe that egg was full of chicken.
Cholesterol?
Oh, probably. No, not cholesterol. No.
You better run, egg.
Homer's big takeaway from this is actually a little bit sad because he's back at home with Marge in bed, and he's concerned that people don't like him, and Marge is trying to comfort him. I mean, everyone likes you, Homer. You're a wonderful person.
I want those stupid idiots let me into their crappy club for jerks.
Marge is trying to assure Homer that it's nothing personal, but Homer is not having it. And it's, to be fair, it's something that's happened to him before. We in fact see a flashback as Homer as a child, and he's outside of a clubhouse where there's some boy who we've never seen before and is actually unnamed in the script. Hey, Billy. Hey, Joey. Come on in. There's plenty of room. Sorry, not you, Homer.
Why not?
And we see this unidentified kid point to the sign of the name of the club, and it's the No Homers Club.
But you let in Homer Glumplich.
We see this random Homer Gumpledge stick his head out the window.
Yeah.
It says no Homers. We're allowed to have one.
I had an observation about this scene. I don't know if you guys did too. Why were Homer and Marge on opposite sides of the bed?
I wrote that note down.
Nice.
They conveniently switch sides of the bed in certain episodes, and it bothers me for some reason.
I think it's only to set up the joke with Bart because of the perspective that they have. So like Marge has to be looking out the door.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what Patsy's referring to is right here as Marge is comforting Homer. Homer is like, oh, I felt so left out. And Marge is like, yeah, kids can be so cruel, right as Bart walks by the room.
We can?
Thanks, Mom.
And almost immediately, you hear the little scampering of feet running away. And then from the other room, you hear Lisa, ow, cut it out, Bart.
See, I had a note to ask the two of you, since you're both spoken for and sharing a bed all the time, if it was normal to switch sides occasionally.
Hell no. That's
Nope.
weird shit. If you do that, you're not my type of people. That's where I draw my line,
Correct.
folks.
No one's gonna take away my ass groove.
That's right.
So you're saying maybe you could learn something from Homer?
Yeah.
Couldn't
That's
we all,
entirely
Richie?
possible.
Couldn't we all? That's the big, deep takeaway from The Simpsons, is we could all use to be a little more like Homer Simpson.
Don't do what Homer don't does.
Or in a broader term, we can all use to be a little more like The Simpsons and a little less like the Waltons.
Oh,
Yep.
There you go.
Shots fired, Waltons podcast. Where are you at?
The 10 do's and 500 don'ts of Homer Simpson's marriage.
That's it, yeah. That's so great. So Homer is now got a new focus in life. All he wants is to become a stonecutter. And he's sharing this with his family over dinner. I actually love when he's saying, I'd give anything to be a stonecutter. Lisa's like, what do they do there, Dad? And in the background, a often overshadowed Simpson is trying to make a declaration. We see Abe Simpson in the background.
I remember.
No one seems to notice, though, because Homer just goes on to continue to answer Lisa's questions. What do they do? What don't they do? Oh, they do so many things. They never stop. Oh, the things they do there, my stars.
You don't know what they do there, do you?
Not as such, no.
I'm a stonecutter!
Then we see Bart literally covering up Abe Simpson so that he's no longer visible other than just the edges of his silhouette. Dad, remember those self-hypnosis courses we took to help us ignore Grandpa?
Do I ever? It's 5 years later and I still think I'm a chicken. I'm a chicken, Marge.
I know.
Well, maybe we should be listening to him now.
I'm a member.
Huh?
What?
What?
Huh?
You're a member of the Stonecutters, Grandpa?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. I'm an elk, a mason, a communist. I'm the president of the Gay and Lesbian Alliance for some reason. Here it is, the Stonecutters.
Ooh, Homer's response here is great.
This is it. My ticket in. They have to let me in if I'm the son of a member. I'll take this communist one, too.
And almost immediately, Homer is making an ass of himself, as he often does when he knows that they have to accept him. He's literally pushing his father through the crowd of Stonecutters, almost as if he's like a human riot shield, and declaring, "You have to let me in, let me through, can't throw me out, my father's a member."
Okay, Homer, you're in. Just don't point that thing at me.
And Homer learns that he's going to be initiated into the secret society as soon as number 1 gets here.
I have to point something out first before we get into this.
Please.
We never see Grandpa again. Like, he was so integral to the plot to get Homer in, and Homer shoves him to the ground. For all we know, he's still laying on the ground.
I mean, was he so much integral, or was he just a MacGuffin at this point?
Yeah, but I mean, without Grandpa, he doesn't get in. And he, waves that in front of him, kind of like a cop waving a badge around. Like, oh, can't arrest me.
It should, I guess, to your point, it would have been cool to, see him at the table singing, or maybe, being tied up by children at the daycare center, or any number of the times that we just see the Stonecutters. Or maybe he was on, the old-time council board since he's been around so long.
You have to do it that way because you would have a lot of questions pop up later. Like, how did Grandpa not know about his birthmark when he's his father? There's a lot of things that could be ruined with Grandpa being at all the meetings that Homer's at.
Yeah, don't overthink this, nerd.
Take into account what Homer said when his mother comes back. He goes, "It was your mother's job to love you and such. I was mainly in it for the spankings."
Which is a big part of being a stonecutter, to be fair.
Continuity.
That's fantastic. And we are, in fact, introduced to number 1. Homer's great here, though. As soon as number 1 gets here, number 1? What type of stupid wiener name is that? Hello, my name is number 1. Hee hee. And so forth.
That's a very Homer thing to do.
It's a perfect Homer. It's very similar to other times in the past where, he's being anytime he uses a sarcastic voice, I absolutely love it. But Homer does, in fact, learn that while they're at Stonecutters meetings, they don't refer to each other by name. They refer to each other by number. So, for instance, Carl is number 14, Lenny's number 12, and Burnsy's actually number 29.
You ranked Mr. Burns?
Sure, watch this. Hey, 29, get over here.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Kicks him in the ass.
He literally kicks his boss in the ass, which is wonderful to see. And of course, Burns gets his last little bit of Burnsiness as we see him kind of cower and walk away.
Patience, monkey, climb the ladder. Hey, it worked for the Hellfish.
That's true.
There you go.
Absolutely. Hey, that's actually a fun tie-in for that episode too.
Which Grandpa's also a member of.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. Is their connection is very rich. It's a complicated tapestry.
It is. It's a rich mosaic.
There it is.
Almost like it was stolen from Germany.
We finally see the man we presume is number 1 walk out from behind a curtain, and Moe actually does tell Homer, yeah, that is the it is the leader of this chapter, but there are chapters all over the world, and it has been foretold that someday a chosen one will...
Okay, I didn't ask for your life story.
I love this as like a little setup for the later reveal, of course, that Homer is the chosen one, because perhaps if Mo had been allowed to talk further at that point, Homer may have been clued into the idea that he has that birthmark they're looking for, but that's not what happens, of course.
No.
I think now would be a good time to point out a couple of things. First of all, if it isn't obvious by now, the Stonecutters are in fact heavily based on the concept of the Freemasons, which is in fact a real life fraternity or brotherhood that exists in the United States. They 100% definitely exist. That is actual factual. Now, what becomes more of legend is how deep do the roots and their connections and power, how much do they really have, and how integral are they in society? But there's a lot of things that we'll talk about on just today's episode that will point out the idea that there's definitely a connection with them and our United States history for certain. Now, Merkin actually claims that he even interviewed some people who claim to be Masons or former Masons, and he did his best to actually base all of the rituals and gags that they do in terms of like the initiations and things like that. Those are actually things that have been claimed by real life Masons who were willing to share that, even though I'm pretty sure that could get you killed. I'm not really 100%, but it sounds like the type of thing that you probably have to oath not to do. So I'm not sure. Anytime you're dealing with a secret society, the operative word is secret. So I feel like misinformation is almost guaranteed in this podcast.
Well, I mean, it'll either get you killed or they'll do something to your voice box.
Exactly.
But how do you know which person got interviewed?
Again, anonymous from Merkin's side on the commentary. He never named anybody, but he did say that he interviewed some people. So
that's what I'm saying. But if the Freemasons don't know who it was, who are they going to punish?
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess.
And how funny would it be if you were a member and you saw this episode and you're like, "Oh my god, that's exactly what we do."
It's that secret handshake where you lift up your shirt and reveal your Freemason T-shirt underneath your regular clothes. Yeah. But for now, we actually start out with a initiation for Homer, and this is again supposedly based off of a real initiation that they actually do, where they put you in a blindfold, and we can see as the audience, they're saying that they're going to shove Homer and he has to survive. They're going to push him off a ledge, and he has to survive a 5-story fall. But we as the audience can see it's really only like a footfall, so it really, I mean, it might not feel great, but it's probably not going to get you really hurt. It's the fear and the trust in your brotherhood and the sacrifice. It's all about that nonsense. It's really stupid shit, really, but it is what it is. Only when Homer takes this leap, he does in fact only fall to foot as proposed, but then almost immediately for the second time in this episode, the support underneath him cracks out and falls and collapses. And we actually get to hear Homer, in fact, does fall all 5 stories as promised. Only there's a crash at each individual floor just to make it worse. And just as the final cherry, Homer calls out at the end, "Oh, I think I have to do it again. My blindfold fell off."
That's such a great joke.
If you heard 5 crashes after he fell the initial time, doesn't that mean he was actually 6 stories up?
Yeah, good mathing over there.
He is the chosen one. And honestly, if Sir Patrick Stewart was talking to me about this stuff, wouldn't you believe him that you're actually going to fall 5 stories?
I would, and I was going to save it and talk about Patrick Stewart a little later, but since you brought it up, we do need to point out that this is a wonderful job voice acting by Patrick Stewart. And once again, have to say that Merkin talked about how much of a pleasure it was to work with the guy. He took it so seriously, like that, and that's a big part about why I think it's so funny as he's delivering these lines in the most sincerest way, even though some of them are quite absurd. And that balance, of course, of, normal and absurd is a common use of comedic tools. But having Sir Patrick Stewart being the one to deliver these lines really helped. And Patrick Stewart himself actually is quoted as saying that his guest role as number 1 is one of the most distinguished works he's done in America.
He makes everything better instantly.
Even the poop emoji from the Emoji Movie was pretty damn funny with his voice coming out of it. Controversial statement, I know.
Well, see, the thing I like about the Patrick Stewart casting for this.
Sorry.
Well, I was going to say in Star Trek: The Next Generation, I don't know if he's ever referred to it, but he's the captain, so he would be number one. He refers to Jonathan Frakes' character, Riker, as number two all the time. So I guess maybe that's a play on that. Maybe they incorporate.
I absolutely think it is. I absolutely agree with you on that, and I think it's part of the fun here.
And if you really want to see something amazing with Patrick Stewart, like a phenomenal performance, the movie Green Room.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that one yet, but I've heard good things.
It's phenomenal. And it's, I believe, Anton Yelchin's last movie.
Oh, wow.
So I recommend that. He said when he was reading the script that he got halfway through it, got up, locked all his doors and windows, turned on all his lights, and sat down with a glass of scotch to finish the script.
Damn.
Yeah, so I 100% recommend that.
He recommends it.
Nice.
Homer is not done with his initiation yet, even though after that fall, you'd think they'd go easy on him, but that is not at all the case. First, he must go through the ritual known as crossing the desert. Only, we can see what's happening the whole time. Homer is still blindfolded. He's just walking across the room, being smacked on the ass with a paddle as he goes by. Number one, in the most Patrick Stewart's of ways, is saying things like, "And this we call the unblinking eye." Same thing, smack, 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 going back across the room. I love though Homer points out here, "Hey, have you ever noticed that the crossing the desert is a lot like the unblinking eye? And it's exactly like the rep of the Hesperus."
And now the final ordeal, the paddling of the swollen ass with paddles.
That's such like a big delivery and such like a great joke, because like everything else is like, it's like, ooh, it has like this crazy sinister name, and now it's like, we're just gonna wail on you. I did think of the Hesperus. It's a tragic poem by Longfellow about a guy who decides, is a sea captain and he's going to bring his daughter along with him, but they start encountering, some rough seas and storms, and so he ties her to the mast so she'll be safe and not get blown away, but she ends up drowning when the ship breaks apart, and he survives, but she doesn't. But she had begged him not to go because she didn't want to go because she had, bad dreams about the ship, on the voyage and everything. So yeah, that's a little insider stuff about what the wreck of the Hesperus was.
That's one of those great jokes that you get on The Simpsons. It's, frankly, way over my head in every way, shape, and form. But I just love it's a reminder of just how incredibly smart this writer's room is. And I also just say that poem is all the way back from 1842.
Yeah, it's pretty old.
Yeah, pretty old. We'll call it.
My brilliant takeaway of it. It's pretty old.
It's pretty darn old.
I wanted to point out all the members of the Stonecutters that my guidebook, The Simpsons: A Complete Guide to Our Favorite Family, was so kind to jot down every single person that's involved, at least in the Springfield chapter. And one of the first names on there kind of throws off our old person having a different area for the Stonecutters kind of thing. All the members of the Stonecutters that you see in the episode: Lenny, Carl, Homer, Jasper, Barney, Adolf Hitler, Sideshow Mel, Wiggum, Mr. Burns, Smithers, Grandpa, Skinner, Moe, Herman, Dr. Hibbert, Mayor Quimby, Groundskeeper Willie, Steve Gutenberg, Krusty, Mr. Van Houten, Kent Brockman, Dewey Largo, Scott Christian, Assistant Superintendent Leopold, Number One, Apu, Homer Glumplich, a small green alien, and the Egg Council guy are apparently all members of the Stonecutters.
There's one they missed. During the Stonecutter song, sitting to Kent Brockman's left, but screen right, we get our first glimpse of the leader of the Movementarians.
Really?
Yes, and we see him again later on in the episode. And I don't know if he has an official name. I just know him as the leader. But
Batman?
No.
So you're saying he learned something from the Stonecutters and carried it on?
I do. I think this is one of those classic Simpsons callbacks where it's like, okay, we don't know who this guy is or where he's from, and let's just make him the leader of the movementarians.
It makes sense. He movementaried on.
Yeah, he should have stuck with the Promise Keepers, though.
Well, we'll go ahead and take a cue from him and move on ourselves, and we're going to get to the last and final oath that Homer has to take to become a stonecutter. We hear Homer with the sacred parchment, and by the sacred parchment, I swear, if I reveal the secrets of the stonecutters, may my stomach become bloated and my head be plucked of all but 3 hairs.
I think you should have to take a different oath.
Everyone takes the same oath.
And we hear Patrick Stewart as number 1 welcome Homer to the club as number 908.
Maybe a possible trivia question in the near future.
Oh, maybe a possible trivia question at Texas Pudocalypse coming up at the end of August. Good point there. We'll need to remember all these, though. You better write these down, Richie.
I circled 908, but I don't remember what page it's going to be on.
I don't remember what that means by now, let alone by then. Right.
Is that what time I'm supposed to wake up?
Oh, no.
Damn it. Is that a date? But yeah, so he's number 908, and he has joined the Sacred Order of the Stonecutters, who since ancient times have split the rocks of ignorance that obscure the light of knowledge and truth. Now let's all get drunk and play ping pong. Yay! Mo is still left out on the floor as everybody walks away, still kind of complaining about Homer's oath.
You know, it's already kind of heavy.
Which Homer will immediately start divulging secrets, so I mean, Mo's got a point.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it begs the question, does Homer just feel like he's on a free roll because he knows he has nothing to lose?
I think that's foreshadowing to say that he is the chosen one. Chosen one doesn't have to be this, godlike figure. If you desecrate the knowledge that the Stonecutters have given you, you will be forced to be held, but you will be in the image of the chosen one, forever reminding you of your shame.
That's a fun, ironic punishment. I like that a lot.
Or maybe the chosen one is the one that doesn't follow the rules, and then he's just the first one to actually break the rules.
Ooh, the rules don't apply to him. Oh, that's a good call, too.
Well, reflect on if the rules apply to you or not. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with the second act of Homer the Great. Alright, everyone. Unfortunately, this conversation is getting a little bit long, so we are going to have to go ahead and cut it right here. That's going to do it for this week, but don't worry, I know what you're thinking. How can you review Homer the Great and not sing the Stonecutters song? Well, don't you worry, my friends. Make sure you come back next week for part 2, where we do. For now, go ahead and follow Patsy, the Angry Nerd, at Patrick Rahal on Twitter. Also, check out the Throwdown Thursday podcast. You can also follow Richie the WizKid everywhere at theWiz_Kid23. I am at MrMostDaysOff, and of course, if you aren't already, follow the Best Darn Diddly Review Show wherever you listen to podcasts, or check us out at bestdarndiddly.com. Patti Cakes, Richie the WizKid, and I will be back again next week for the conclusion of Homer the Great. And until next time, be cromulent to each other.
I'm Jay.
I'm Bob.
And I'm Corey.
We are the Cretans Guild.
We're a trio of man-children whose friendship predates The Lion King, Green Day's Dookie, the N64, and the Chunnel.
We have backgrounds working in television, video games, radio broadcasting, creative writing, and pizza delivery. That's a large cheese, right?
On our podcast, Nerd or Not, you'll hear us talk about board games, TV, movies, comics, collectibles, video games, wrestling, theme parks. We even did a segment on f***ing pizza.
So check and listen to us on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. And check out our socials on Twitter and Instagram under Cretans Guild.
Welcome to the Guild.